as we pledge our allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We remember them in the rising of the sun and in its going down. We remember them in the blowing of the island breezes and in the sparkling ocean waters. We remember them in the blueness of the sky and in the warm sands of the beach. We remember them in the beginning of the year and when it ends. We remember them when we are lost and sick at heart. We remember them. So long as we live, they too shall live, for they are now a part of us. As we remember them, Chetlu, we remember you.
We're here to pay homage to the young men whose names appeared on the wall behind me. These young men gave their life so that all of us will live in freedom, all of us will be able to pursue our happiness in the greatest country of the world, the United States of America. The greatness of this country is not based on how much you own. It's not based on who you are. It is based on our values and sacrifice, such as the young men who gave their life to make sure that you and I and everyone in America will be able to live in peace and harmony and free from oppression from any other country in the world. And let us also remember that freedom is not free. And please listen to what I said. Freedom is not free. We have to earn it. And the way you earn freedom is the constant struggle of the country to make sure that oppressors or enemies are never going to lay foot on this ground where we stand. In other words, we have to be prepared to defend, fight, and defeat our enemies at all costs, including the life of our people. And the young men we're honoring today understood that duty. They spent their time back home in Guam, in the small island of Guam and Northern Marianas. As they grew up there, they were imbued by the fact that when they grew to manhood and eligible to enlist in the military, were enlisting in great numbers, knowing full well that the Vietnam War was going on at the same time. Enlisted and served and went through their training. The next thing you know, they were deployed to Vietnam, fighting the war in Vietnam. These are the young people again who are down there in the wall. So although they're no longer with us, we honor their sacrifices. We want to make sure that we will continue, that their sacrifice will continue to live in our hearts and minds. For their parents in Guam and Northern Mariana, for their brothers and sisters and relatives who are not able to be with us today, we want to give them our respect and sympathy and gratitude for their loss. And in closing, we as Chamorro citizens who are living here away from our home, We have no greater honor than to stand here, including the fact that we're wet, to honor those brave soldiers who represents the best thing about being a Chamorro: patriotism, duty, love of country, and therefore I'm glad that we are all here to honor that legacy. Thank you very much. At this time, I'd like to introduce our veterans from North Carolina, and I'd like to add a little remark to some of the band of soldiers. Pretty much a lot of the energy and enthusiasm came from them. It's very heartening to know that here in the United States we have Chamorros living in part of this country that continue to revere the legacy of the Chamorro spirit.
Ogwin Hussein Kinata, U.S. Army, Platoon Sergeant, Yumatek, Guam. Sonoma Francisco M., Army, Sergeant, Inalan, Guam. Benavente David Guerrero, Marine Corps, Staff Sergeant, Dedidu, Guam. Biagini Mark Frederick, Army, Sergeant, Magilo, Guam. Blas Anthony Martin M., Army, Specialist 5, Zonia, Guam. Blas James Lujan, Marine Corps, Lance Corporal, Dedidu, Guam. Potra Juan Santos, U.S. Army, Staff Sergeant, Sinahanya, Guam. Cabrera Joaquin Palacios, Army, Staff Sergeant, Meleso, Guam. Kamatsu David Katunga, Army, Staff Sergeant, Tamuning, Guam. Carter Donald Semingoit, U.S. Army, Private First Class, Dedidu, Guam.
Castro Juan Squad, U.S. Army, Staff Sergeant, Mongmong, Guam. Cepeda Juan Duenas, U.S. Army, Sergeant, Dedidu, Guam. Cruz Edward Cruz, P. Navy, Petty Officer 2, Inarahan, Guam. Cruz Enrique Salas, Army, Staff Sergeant, Santa Rita, Guam. Cruz Joseph Agigi, Marine Corps, PFC, Marisu, Guam. Joseph William, U.S. Army, Specialist for Aganda Heights, Guam. Cruz Pedro Aflagui, U.S. Army, Staff Sergeant, Aganda, Guam. Casito Raymond Perez, Marine Corps, Tamuning, Guam. Damian Allen James, Marine Corps, Lance Corporal, Agana, Guam. De la Cruz Federico V., U.S. Army, Corporal, Agana Heights, Agana, Guam.
De Leon Herman Borja, Army, PFC, Agana, Guam. Diaz Edward Regis, Army, Spec 5, PT, Guam. Doyle Albert Barcinas, Army, Sergeant, Malesu, Guam. Duenas Jose Bamba, Army, Staff Sergeant, Totu, Guam. A. Rudy Eldaher, Army, Corporal, Tamuning, Guam. Escano Juanito Marquez, Army, Sergeant, Agana, Guam. Espinosa Vicente T., Marine Corps, Sergeant, Malesu, Guam. Estevez Fernando Barcinas, Army, Sergeant, Malesu, Guam. Estacio Joseph Martin, Army, Sergeant, Jotna, Guam. Finney Harold James, Army, Spec 4, Asan, Guam.
Flores Benny St. Nicholas, Sergeant, Army, Melissa. Flores David Cruz, Spec 4, Army, Agana, Guam. Funes David John, Sergeant, Army, Barrigada. Thornton David Atoigwe, Spec 4, Army, Talafulfo. Guerrero Pedro Rosario, Staff Sergeant, Army, Barrigada, Guam.
Guerrero Vincent Feja, Army Corporal, Sinahanya, Guam. Herrera Jose Babalta, Army PFC, Agate, Guam. Mariano Jesus Rosa, Army Spec 4, Manilo, Guam. Mendiola Robert Leon Guerrero, Army, Manilo, Guam. Manu Jesus Kineni, Army, PFC, Inarahan, Guam.
Mesa Tomas Reyes, United States Army, Specialist 4, Agat, Guam. Morham Vincent Pinaula, United States Army, Corporal, Sinahanya, Guam. Nediduk Emilio Nihasen, United States Army, Sergeant, Agat, Guam. Angelinan Gregorio L., Army Corporal, Mongmong, Guam. Pangilinan Pedro Cabrera, Army Staff Sergeant, Agatna, Guam. Pireda Henry Pangilinan, Army Sergeant, Agatna, Guam. Paris John Anthony, Army Specialist 4, Dedidu, Guam. Paris Vicente Duenas, Army Sergeant First Class, Mongmong, Guam. Cuenga Johnny Cruz, Army Platoon Sergeant, Hagat, Guam. Tidachai Jesus Aquinino, Army Specialist 4, Umatak, Guam.
Regis Tomas Garcia, Army, Staff Sergeant, Agana, Guam. Ripple Eugene Raymond, Army, Specialist 4, Dedidu, Guam. Rivera Thomas South, Army, Spec 4, Agate, Guam. Rodriguez Lucas Herrera, Army, PFC, Agate, Guam. Sablan Antonio Tichocho, Army, Sergeant First Class, Jigo, Guam. Sablan Ignacio Espinosa, Marine Corps, Lance Corporal, Santa Rita, Guam. Sablan John Tenorio, Army, PFC, Agana, Guam. Sablan Thomas Tichocho, Army, Staff Sergeant, Jigo, Guam. Sanchez George Santiago, Army Corporal, Yamatic, Guam. San Nicolas Rufo Santos, Marine Corps, Lance Corporal, Sinahanya, Guam.
San Nicolas Victor P. Army Spec 4, Inarahan, Guam. Santos Enrique Rosario, Army Sergeant, Sinahanya, Guam. Santos Ernest Pablo, U.S. Army, PFC, Talafofo, Guam. Santos James Edward Ander, U.S. Army, Spec 4, Dedidu, Guam. Santos Rafael Salas, U.S. Army, Staff Sergeant, Agana, Guam. Taitagui Johnny Salas, U.S. Army, Spec 4, Talafofo, Guam. Tori Francis Nicolas, Marine Corps, Sergeant, Mangilo, Guam. Torres Richardo Joe T., U.S. Army, Spec 4, Agana, Guam. Violet James Edward, Marine Corps, Corporal, Guam. Yokoi Rafael Scambolori, Marine Corps, PFC, Mong Mong, Guam.